For that. Much appreciated. I want to bring in now a man who has seen it all when it comes to politics, and that is former Congressman Mike Rogers, the host of CNN's series Declassified. As we look at this Brexit vote, and you see the Leaves are ahead now, and they're saying they're predicting it. There is polling that predicts that there's a very good chance, Mike Rogers, that Britain will leave the European Union. This is fascinating. So I have to start up by asking you, what's your take on what you see unfolding in the UK right now?
You know, I just don't think that they dealt with it very well, Don. So when you look at what Brussels was coming out of Brussels, it was causing a chafing for years, and especially in Great Britain. So they had to fight back on the level of benefit payments for migrants across Europe who showed up in Britain, and that caused problems. They had some tax issues where Britain wanted to exclude certain things, medical and certain food items that the Brussels disagreed with. And so this mantra of 60% of the laws now that Britain lives under happen in Brussels, of which they have very little representation, or at least that was the Brexit campaign talk. And then when they're adjudicated, those judges are not British citizens. And so Brussels continued with their plan, thinking that you're just going to have to live with it. And I think you're seeing the results of that in this Leave campaign. I wasn't for leaving. I thought that this will bring some trouble to Great Britain, certainly, and some pain in the short term. They probably can get over it. But I think this is really Brussels' fault for not dealing with this very, very well and just holding to their position. You have to live by where we're going in the rest of the European Union, Great Britain, and tough. Yeah. And I think that was a terrible way. I think the you see is because of that.
If you look at what happened today with the Supreme Court and immigration in this country, and then you heard Nick Robertson talking about migrant workers, immigrants, Christiane Amanpour as well, and it's sort of a parallel to what's happening here in the United States politically as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is an issue. There's this huge changing movement. So you have, in the United States, you have 94 million, roughly, Americans who have opted not to go into the workforce. We have the highest number of people on food stamps that we've ever had before. So there's some people see it. So, you know, and I think this notion of the political elite versus the rest of the population, people who are struggling across most of the country are saying something, I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. I haven't had a raise in 10 years. You know, it's harder for my family to make it. They see the refugee issue. They see, and by the way, the political conversation about these things are so polarizing that you run into this factor. Who do I trust? I don't know who to trust, but I know that somebody's saying this is a problem. Maybe that's the problem. Voters are responding to that. So I think that's, you know, I think some of the popularity of Donald Trump. I think it's some of the popularity of the Brexit vote here, where people are saying, you know what, I don't know what the answer is, but what I see I don't like, and I'm going to try something different. That's what I think's happening. It's, you know, shame on all of the folks who believe in something different for not articulating a more positive approach to why staying in the EU was important for average people in England and across Great Britain. And I don't think they made that case.
And speaking of polarizing topics, you saw the protest on the floor of the House last night. It was amazing to watch. I mean, as a former congressman, what did you make of it?
You know, I was a guy that really liked to actually sit down and work things out. I think sitting on the House floor almost looked childish to me. This is pretty serious stuff. If we're gonna have those discussions, do that off the floor of the House, likely, to sit down with people you disagree with, and you look at them, and then you try to forge some kind of a way forward. I thought disrupting the regular order of the House looked ridiculous. And I think it made the Democrats look small. I think it actually hurt their case when you have Senator Susan Collins come out and say, you've actually hurt my case for working a bipartisan issue in the Senate. I think that says a lot. And when very liberal Alan Dershowitz says, I thought the House looked childish, I think they've got a problem. I just don't think it helps their cause very much.
While I have you here, I want to talk about, you're the host of this great news show on CNN. It's called Declassified. It airs Sunday nights, 10 p.m. And in a former life, you were actually the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So you had a front row seat to a lot of things that happened, these secretive missions. And we've talked about your show and how it became a show in the previous conversations that we've had. But this week, you are discussing Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, the hunt for Saddam Hussein. So think of this, Don, you get to see the outcome. We know we caught him. But what went into that? What is all of the intrigue, the challenges, the good days and the bad days from the individuals who put that whole case together? And it's fascinating. You're going to, see Army intelligence interrogators who got trained and went there and figured out that their tactics weren't working very well. They needed to try something different. And they ended up piecing together small bits of information. It came down to a chef and the favorite meal of Saddam Hussein, which was a very special fish. And so those little details and all of the casework that they did about trying to take bad guys off the battlefield, doing those interrogations, catching more I think that people are going to be fascinated by the story of what actually went in to catching Saddam Hussein.
Mike Rogers, thank you very much. Declassified, Sunday nights at 10 right here on CNN. We appreciate it.